I would like to welcome you to the greatest conversation that you will hear today. What's good? I'm Rob Cressy and welcome to Built for the Game. And joining me is my friend, master creator, coach, one of, if not the most loving people in the entire world. Say hello to Fiona Ross. Fiona, how you doing today?
I am so good. Thank you, Rob. So good. And what a pleasure to be with you for this conversation.
I know. And this is going to be a 15 out of 10 experience, and you don't even know what we're going to be talking about. And it doesn't even matter because you and I have a very unique relationship. Let's call it 3 years ago. We spent a year together as part of John Patrick Morgan's Creator Circle, where you and I were actively creating or co-creating together. And it is where our relationship started. And then more recently, about 1 month ago, we met in person for the first time at the Ultimate Experience Arizona. And there's something that you said to me that changed my entire perspective of what I created there. And that's what we're going to start with. And you and I met in person for the first time, and we had the hug that had been waiting for 3 years. When we were creating together, you said, and I put this in my compliment file, Rob, if we ever met in person, I know I could give you a genuine hug. And man, I took that because you're such a loving person. I'm like, I can't wait for that day. Well, that day happened. And Fiona, can you frame this for everybody? Because the day before the event, you had a Be With session with Steve Hardison. And I asked you, what was your big takeaway from that? And the word you said to me was release. Can you explain that? Because that changed my perspective.
Was it release? Yes, it was. I woke up. No, it was cleansed.
Cleansed, and I turned it into release. My apologies.
Yes, it was cleansed. It was a remarkable. I woke in the morning, so I'd had a long sleep. A Be With Steve is something quite unique, and you're in there for 2 hours, and I so wanted to make sure I left with all the gold, and so I was taking some notes and really listening, and then I got back to my hotel room and I made loads more notes and just tried to pad out the notes that I'd made, and it was something ridiculous like 7 o'clock in the evening, and I was just exhausted. It was just like this tiredness came over me. And I went to bed and I slept the whole night. And I literally woke up the following morning, like cleansed. Like all this stuff had just completely dropped away. All that human stuff, the thinking and the worries and all the stuff that in the past had really got in my way. And what shifted was it moved me towards being so much more authentically me, less apologetic for who I am. I don't even think less is the right word, just unapologetic for who I am. And put me in a space of just like, well, anything's possible. From this point on, anything is possible.
So I love this. And I'm curious because me being on the receiving end of this, hearing anything is possible, I'm like, tell me more about this. And the reason this inspired me so much is I'm rolling into the Ultimate Experience, coming off this life-changing conversation out of nowhere with Steve Hardison 8 days prior. I'm now at the Ultimate Experience where I don't know anybody else except for you and Dominic London right there. And we've never met in person before, only virtually. And I had no expectations of what I was about to experience. I didn't know what was going on. All I knew was I do the work. I'm about this life. I'm here to create miracles and I'm open to whatever is about to happen. And then boom, right away, you're the very first person and you say, Rob, I felt cleansed and I felt it from you, from your state of being. And my respect for you as a creator and then you creating with Steve, I was like, wow, there's something here in this. And I say this very tongue in cheek that like I went into the experience being like, I'm going to make all my dreams and goals and vision and everything happen because I'm here. And it doesn't mean someone's going to tell me a marketing framework or something, but it's like, this is what's going to happen. And then you're like, Rob, I left this conversation with Steve cleansed. And I was like, whoa, I did not expect this. So later on in the event, and the reason I said the word release is because there is 2 quotes that were said, and there was even one talk specifically about release. But you planted the seed of possibility for me about cleansed. And I was like, wow, I really like this because one of the things that is on my Built for the Game manifesto is letting go is creating. And it's the perspective, and it's a mastery level one, despite the fact that it's so easy, yet many of us don't do it, right? It's always accessible to us. Just don't do those things or don't be those stories, right? So it's the letting go and seeing that as actually an action. So when I heard doubt your doubts, I was like, oh, baby, sign me up for this. And then the other one being, unless your fears, judgments, and self-limiting beliefs are 100% true, give them no weight. So I hear that. So those things are stacking and they're like, just release. And then here you are with cleanse. And I'm like, man, just dropping that which does not serve me. Yes, we can look at that from an action side, but I'm not even talking about that. I'm actually talking about the story that I'm telling myself. The fears, the judgments, the doubts, the limiting beliefs, those things that are not the best version of myself and my true identity. So all of a sudden, here you are, you're like, cleanse, release. I'm like, whoosh. And it's an interesting perspective because you said anything is possible. And it's always an open invitation. It's always a blank canvas. But the bridge between giving yourself the perspective to release, or maybe it's the embodiment of it. That's what can be the most challenging part of this is it's why I created the self-auditing framework of know, K-N-O-W, believe, live. Do I know this to be true? Do I believe it to be true? And am I living it? And the believe to the live side is oftentimes the challenging thing. It's like, Rob and Fiona, I hear you guys, but I've got these bills, or I've got these things that have happened to me, or I've got this situation. So it's very easy to stay in the comfortable story, even if it's one that's not serving you, versus the, you know what? I'm dropping all of that doesn't serve me. And then when you do, and this is what my experience became, it was like, oh my God, this opens up a whole new world of possibilities for me because I can step into the best and higher version of myself because I'm not being, air quotes, drugged down by the things that are not serving me. And the way that I would frame this is like the concept of pruning. For a rose to become a rose and fully blossom, you've got to remove the dead petals so they're not taking the energy from the ones that are going to fully blossom. And between you and the conference, I was like, oh my God. So then eventually, once I had my conversation with Steve Hardison at 3:30 p.m. on the final day, and he essentially shoots the fire into me saying, Rob, you can be the leader of a global movement. I was like, this is totally possible for me because I'm not the person who's living in my fear, judgments, and self-limiting beliefs.
Right. I was in a conversation yesterday with an amazing coach named Sumit Gupta. And we were kind of having this conversation. There was a group of us. And he asked a great question about, he said, if you're playing the biggest game of your life, what are you saying no to? You know, like that pruning sense. What is it that doesn't actually, if this is what I want to create, what are the things that are coming into my life that I now am going to say no to because it's not serving the creation? And then he said a lovely phrase, really made me laugh. But a little bit later on in the conversation, he was speaking with somebody, and he said, look, if you want to go to the moon, why are you polishing your car? It's like, that's not the vehicle that's going to get you to the moon. So why are you over here doing all this stuff that isn't serving the creation?
So I'm curious, because this is a 1% of a 1% conversation. This is we're self-aware, we're intentional, we know what's possible, so we're living in our vision, and we're excavating as much as we are creating. So it's the backwards and the forwards of this. So you said the things coming into my life not serving the creation. And I find that is probably more a what's in your mind than it probably is what are the actions or the things of oh no, I need to say no to this thing that's draining my, yes, that will be part of it. That's why I say audit your inputs, right? It's like gold in, gold out, garbage in, garbage out. But for me, my only challenge is myself. And I spend so much time in my head that the thing that I'm really focusing on is leading more with my heart and less with my head, because my head, and you know this from creating with me for 3 years, is such the logical part. It's the monkey brain. It's the, if I have not yet created it, what am I doing wrong? What am I not seeing? And I just start going in circles right here versus the following the intuition and leading with your vision. And I think this is the most challenging thing, certainly for me. And I'd love to hear your perspective, Fiona, because it's the concept of getting out of your own way, but doing so at the highest level as a master creator who has a massive vision.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm still on this path. You know, I'm still, you know, a work in progress on this, but there's been leaps recently. And one of the leaps has been the concept of love and fear. And if you were to put that on a line with fear at one end and love at the other, you can literally kind of move the where you are up and down that line. And you can guarantee that when you're in confusion, lack of clarity, shouldn't I? Will they listen to me? What if I make a mistake? What will other people think? That's all down on the fear end. And everything that is going to serve you is up the love end. So you could literally write underneath each word, you could just write all the emotions and ways of being that are attributed, and just follow the ones from under the love column.
So here's what I hear from you, Fiona, is actually the practical application of this. And what you just said is actually one of my superpowers. And what it is hearing somebody share a framework. Hey, take a piece of paper, write love on one side, fear on the other side, a line down the middle, and give yourself 10 minutes to write down all the things that are associated with love in your vision and all of the things associated with fear. And this is where you go from theory to practical to embodiment. Because I think one of the things that has served me as a superpower is I know how important embodiment is. Because as you know, I never set out to become a coach. I just lived like one for more than a decade until I started to be hired to become a coach. And the reason is because I embody these things. And the reason is because I have these big dreams and goals and visions. And in order for me to create this, I get to be the person who lives this sort of perspective, all while knowing the column of the fear side is constantly going. Like, that one's never going to end. Neither is the love side. So it's almost it's why we call this a practice. And that's part of one of the keys of embodiment, of every single day we do the work, air quotes, the work, as Byron Katie would say, to create ourselves into the best version of ourselves, because you and I both know that fear side of the ledger, and you could call that fear, doubt, self-judgment, limiting beliefs, whatever. That side of the things, the world is going to be shooting those arrows and filling that thing up nonstop, whether it's ourselves or the external environments right there. So because of it, the work is to create myself into the best version, because I know what's on the other side if I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's that wonderful phrase, well, what would love do? You know, when you find yourself in that moment where something's happened, emotions are high, you've got that nervous feeling, oh, should I, or somebody's said something that's, you found anger arising in you, or frustration, or anything, because we're human beings. Let's not forget, we are human beings with a long history of being reactive. In that moment, if the only life raft you have is what would love do, that gives you that breathing space to course correct what might have been something that isn't taking you towards your goal.
So here's a practical thing that I did, and I still do. I did this for years. At the top of my 10X planner of what I feel every single day, there's always room up here for me to write something. So today I wrote miracles plus wonderful, right? Sort of planting that intention. But for a long period of time, what I would write up there is, what would infinite love do? Right? Just the question up there. And it was just sort of a prompt for me. So if we're looking at the practical side, step one, love versus fear, audit yourself. Step two, if you want to create an awareness practice, imagine every single day, what would love do? What would love do? What would love do? And this doesn't have to be hard. This isn't like we're shoveling rocks, right?
No.
It's literally a Post-it note, or you just writing down, AKA setting the intention.
Or a little box of cards that sit in front of my in front of my desk.
Fiona, we can laugh at this, but this is literally what being a master creator is all about, right? One simple action that is relatively effortless, that has infinite possibilities when you do said thing. Because imagine every single day for this entire year, it was, what would love do? 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 Do you think you'd be living more in the love frequency or in the fear frequency? So I call this a consistency practice, right? The way that I created myself into a coach is by doing little things like your jar of little questions there, or me writing down what would love
to. I'll share some with you. So what my business plan is, to love people. One of them. You are bigger than any problem you will ever face. These are the most recent ones. The issue isn't the issue. The issue is how I choose to love in any moment. Creating myself is a full-time job. You know, these are the little notes that I just keep in my little box in front of me, and I shuffle. And sometimes there's questions on there. I've got bias towards action is also sitting in front of me right now. So yeah, these are the little things that, and my document is also sitting, that sits to the left of my screen, all printed up and framed. And whether it's committed to well, it's more than committed to memory. And this was something that also happened in Steve's office. So when I created my document, I had a thinking that it was going to be difficult to memorize. And so I put a lot of effort into getting it into my head, so that when I was wanting to speak my document, I didn't have to read it. And so I memorized it some time ago, and then I then went to the embodiment of it. But what Steve introduced me to was now to let it flow through me, like it's delivered, if you like. And that conscious creation of who I am, memorizing it is okay. I mean, reading it's okay. Memorizing it's one better. Embodying it's even better. But when you kind of give it up and let it flow through you, it has a whole other impact on who you're being.
I love the synchronicity of the universe. Love it. Because somewhere along the lines, in the last 3 weeks, I picked up something that I threw into, I have a notebook on Evernote that I call Being Creation, right? So all the ways that I self-create myself. And one of my declarations is, I am in flow. And there's the emoji of the surfer. And what I'd always said is, I'm riding the waves of life, because a surfer, there's ups and downs, but a surfer's still riding the downs. And to me, that's a sort of a paradox to the way that we think about the fear, the judgment, the self-limiting beliefs, the challenges. And it's like, wow, this reminder. And then the next level, as I'm building out the world of I am in flow, and what that means to me is, the source is flowing through me, right? So since the ultimate experience, there's been a greater connection to seeing me and God as one and the same. So everything's flowing through. But then somewhere along the lines in the last 3 weeks, Fiona, and this is in my document, it says, take it another level and let it flow through me and be my document. Steve Hardison. I don't know where I picked it up. It's somewhere in our world. It may have came directly from you. And I've been reading that as part of I Am in Flow. And shout out, several of our friends, Fiona, right now are watching this. Matt says the little things aren't little after all. Ain't that right, Matt? So,
right.
Fiona, here's what I love about this active creation with you. Because in preparation for this, I went back through all of the creating we did in Creator Circle. And I just searched the word Fiona, right? So I got to see all of the instances in which you were creating with JP and I'm co-creating myself, or peer support where I am in service of you or you are in service of me. And it just so happens, knowing who you are and how you are infinite love, love was going to be one of the topics that I wanted to create with you. And there are two things that you said that I'll use as our next yes and for our conversation. And you said, my relationship to myself as lovable is the gateway to all self-creation. And then the second thing is, it was an idea. All I need to do is be in love and service. Both of those came from you 3 years ago. When you hear that, what comes top of mind?
What comes top of mind is that I remember how far away that was at that time. It was conceptually there, and I'm sure it was actually there at some level. But the last 3 years, those have actualized within me to a far greater degree. And you might find this interesting. So my first experience of document creation was in Creator's Circle, but I hadn't understood the how to create a document. So I wrote a document in Creator's Circle, and I'd be there and I'd be reading this document, and actually a lot of the time it didn't help me because I still had all the judgments and I hadn't done the forgiveness work. So when I came to create my document, I kind of scrapped that one as not a great document. And then I created the document through the process of self-forgiveness and then creating these new truths. So I created the document that pretty much the document I have now. It's had a few tweaks, but it's essentially the same one that I've had for a while. And just before Christmas, so just before January this year, I was looking for something in my rather haphazard filing system in my computer. And I came across that first document that I created in Creators Circle. And I read it through, and it was like, oh, it's a great document. It's absolutely perfect. The only difference was I've done the forgiveness process now. So I've forgiven all the stuff, not all the judgments maybe, but all the judgments that were there that were stopping that document being useful. And now, I could have that one framed right there and it would be perfect.
All right, so there's one other quote that I'm going to yes and to this from you. Believing myself that is who I am. Right? So what I'm hearing from you in the creation of your document, and this is for a lot of people, and I would like to think that this is the difference between the way that people frame affirmations and the way that we live and embody declarations. Yeah. Is there value in speaking something positive out into the world, even if you don't believe it? Yes, it is better than treating yourself like crap, even if it's, I'm going to be a millionaire. It's like a lot of people would be like, oh, no, that's not a good thing. Well, no, there's levels to this game of where you are in your journey. And when you're just starting out, starting to design your positive self-talk and your identity and getting to the point where know, believe, live, right? So you're like, all right, now you're just going from no to believe. You're like, man, can I even believe this to be true? Versus seeing this as a possibility because you've done the work. And what I love about self-creation and I am statements in the document is the ability in a moment's notice for your entire life to change and step into a brand new identity, which is what I experienced at the Ultimate Experience when I walked in a coach, an entrepreneur, and master creator, and I left the leader of a global movement. Right. And it's like the bridge between, whoa, that's too big, I haven't done the work, or I don't see the possibilities, and this sort of recalls what we originally talked about, and you said the forgiveness. For me, the cleanse, the release. So I didn't have to forgive myself to step into the leader of a global movement. What I got to do is Steve helped me take the ceiling off the top of the mountain by speaking powerfully into who I am. I already had that powerful orientation for myself. And the way that I've described this when I'm sharing this with other people is obviously I felt seen from Steve, but I felt like I was minted, right? Of like someone you admire and you respect on the absolute highest level, seeing something possible in you that you knew was in there, right? You're like, I'm on this. I've always been on this trajectory. You know me, Fiona. Big vision, Rob, because we're going to get to the next part of this, right? And hearing that, and it's just like, oh my goodness. So the speaking of the big immediately dropped all the small because there's no room for the fears, the judgments, the self-limiting beliefs if I'm the leader of a global movement all around, creating from your heart. So Fiona, we are now going to transition into something that you changed my life, and you brought it back up 2 weeks ago when we were scheduling this podcast. You go, Rob, I don't know if you remember this conversation. And of course, me, I take notes of everything. I embody everything. Legitimately, every conversation with every person is an opportunity for my life to be changed in an instant. And certainly when I'm creating with somebody as powerful as you, right? When I'm being vulnerable, I'm sharing my dreams, my visions, my challenges. And one of the things was around me building this community. And actually the real thing I wanted to create was retiring my wife. And the ongoing narrative, which I'm sure so many people can relate to, is why is this not happening faster? The growing of my business. And at the time, I was doing one-on-one coaching, and I had the vision of a group program or a community there. And it's like, why is this just not happening faster? And your exact words, Fiona, and I'm looking at my notes right here, and it says, I need an active space, a community. I'm serving them in the community. It's what makes them want to be part of my program. And then here's the gold. Where's Rob's party? He's doing all this stuff. Rob is having a party over here. That's what's going to sell the program. Have you been invited to Rob's party yet? I can get you in. The community will create the momentum for me. When I have numbers, I have a leap. There's something about me that says there's a good time over there. And then this is the piece of gold that I've never forgotten, and I've embodied legitimately every single day since this conversation 3 years ago. Rob's party retired his wife. And you helped create that.
Wow. Yeah, I do remember that conversation. And it's like, you're like a party on legs, right? I mean, you are just the party. And that was what I was seeing, was it's like the invitation wasn't there. And I think this invitation into possibility, and this is something I've been really leaning into, because in the past I've had a certain amount, well, in the long distant past, I've had a lot of thinking about, who am I to ask that person to come to the party, kind of thing. And then, over time that has shifted, but that's completely dropped away now. And I've been practicing this in creating an amazing space. So part of my homework for Steve was to read The Way of Mastery. And I had 6 months to have completed the book. So I read it, and it sounds like 6 months is a long time, but it's quite a read, this book. So I got to the end of reading this amazing text, and I was just like, I haven't even, when you eat a piece of chocolate so fast, you kind of like haven't even really tasted it. And it's like, oh, I wish I'd slowed down with that. So it felt a little bit like that. It was like, I know it was really good, and I know I got a lot from it, and it was really tasty, but it didn't really touch the sides. So I kind of got this nudge that I need to study this as it was designed to be studied, which is over a 3-year period. And I'm sitting there going, what, are you crazy? You're going to commit to 3 years of studying this? And then the nudge happened again, and it was like, and you're going to invite a load of people to do this with you. And that was like, oh, so not only am I going to commit to doing this, I'm going to commit to holding a space for other people to join me in this. And that was like, I'm literally going, really? I'm going to do this? And it was scary. It was really scary. And now I'm putting it together, and I've got this Zoom Q&A happening on the 21st of March. And I am reaching out. I've invited Steve. I've invited so many people that in the past, I would have discounted inviting them because of my fear. And now I'm just like, there's a party over here, and you're welcome to come or not. And I respect every no that comes my way. If it's not for them, it's not for them. But who am I not to invite them to the party? And so this has been it's been a blast almost of like, well, I've literally got a list of people, and I'm just sending out invitations. Join me for the Q&A if you're interested to find out what this is about. And if you're not, that's completely cool. And it's so liberating. This is service. So Steve was a no, and I'm absolutely perfect with that. And I wrote back to him, and I was like, I wouldn't be in integrity to have not given you the opportunity to be at the party.
Yeah, and you're living what you spoke to me, right? So I'm going to take 2 things that you said.
3 years.
Right. Oh, welcome to the way we all create, right?
Right.
So one of the things that's on my Built for the Game manifesto that I always want to be reminded of, asking is a gift. Right? Asking is a gift. Asking is a gift. So one of the things that you said, Rob, who did I teach myself that I am through my asking? You said that 3 years ago, right? So I'm pulling this here. So it's like, as you're saying all of this, you're a different person and identity by the way that you are framing your asks and invitations into this. And I love, love, love. And it's one of the things I know at the end, it's like, hey, what did you create today? What did I create today? This invitation into possibility. Because I think for so many, let's just call it coaches, it's the, how do I grow my business? How do I enroll more people? And what excites me so much about this world is actually just that phrase, an invitation into possibility. Because Fiona, right now, you and I could be doing this within our own community for our clients. There could be Q&A, and it's like, I love the portal of possibility because it's actually the thing that I specialize in, of leading with my heart, being a yes and champion for you and everyone in every single thing that they do. And I will do everything in my power to help you create everything you want in your life.
And this is where the document is so amazing, because the more you work with it, the more it's with you, the more it flows through you, the more discerning, or the more depth there is. So one of my phrases, or I am statements, is I am loving service, a magnetic force for good. My ask contains a gift more precious. And it's like, that's it. And I've been saying this line for years, and it's landing in action now as a way of being, that I'm not being service if I'm not asking, if I'm not inviting people into the possibility of their lives.
Yeah, and one of the things, I've got several declarations that are a yes and to this. Number one, I am that the world needs more of me. And then number two, and this is a subset of I am an asking machine. That was one of the declarations, is I am that a conversation with me is a gift. So there's the asking is the gift, and then there is the conversation is the gift, right? Because we both know with absolute certainty a conversation with either one of us is a gift, including this right now. I'm like, this is what a creating call with Fiona and I would look like in some capacity, other than we would be more specific, which will be the last thing we talk about. So Fiona, another thing you said is get specific on what my future self is. Hold myself to being very specific. And the beauty of you and I creating together when we do is the specificity we bring to the table, and then the space that we create to create this portal of possibility, to where we don't roll in being like, well, Rob, what do you want to create today? It's like, yeah, I don't know. I didn't really think about it today. It's like, no, wait a second. I've got 45 minutes to create with one of the most powerful people on earth, who's there to be a champion for me in all that I do. I am going to get not only super specific, I'm shooting for the moon. I'm retiring my wife. Let's go. But of course, you peel the layers back from that, right? You've got the big vision, retire your wife, but that really becomes, I want this community because I want to serve more people. But this ultimately ends up becoming, who am I being in my state of being, in my identity that's not having me, or is having me not doing the effortless asks, not seeing the portal of possibility. And what I've loved about some of these things is I am super specific, because that's actually a tool in your creator tool belt, right? And I even mentioned this yesterday on a call with one of my clients, that I believe one of the number one things people and the language is correct, struggle with, even if you're a master creator, is clarity. Clarity of vision. We've got these big dreams and goals and identities and all of that. And then I'm just like, well, cool. Show me the document of your document or your goals this year or what it is you want to create. And it's like, oh no, I just sort of think about it. But once again, what do I hear? System, scale, process, right? You could pop open that card and say, Rob, here's my quote for the day. That's process, right? As Matt said, the little things aren't so little, huh? And I'm curious, what do you see in terms of clarity of vision? Because getting specific on your future self, this to me is what allowed my ceiling to be infinite after Steve's conversation, is because the specificity has always been there. And without the language being correct, my identity needed to catch up to my vision. I wasn't creating myself. I was creating myself as powerful as I humanly could. And then all of a sudden it was like, and Rob, you can be so much bigger because you are this. And I just didn't see it.
And this actually brings me to something else that Sumit Gupta speaks about. I was on a call with him, and it was a few months ago. He was standing in for Townsend Wardlaw in the 100K Accelerator. So this is end of last year. And I'm going to have to paraphrase, but what he said was it kind of like, it's not that I hadn't heard it before, but it really kind of impacted me. And he said, I dropped everything, became my future self. And from that point, I call forward what I'm creating. So in the context of what you're speaking, you have become a global leader. And from that space, you're calling forward the actions that are required to create you as a global leader. So when you become an I am that, it might, and this is the whole part about the document. You create a document and there may be some, I'm not quite that yet. But as you speak it, you're not creating unless you're speaking, right? This is the abracadabra that I create with my words. If you're not speaking this from the place of it's already done, you're going from here to there rather from there and calling into action what needs to happen to create that vision, to actualize that vision.
Yeah, and I think this is the work on the highest level. You said to actualize the vision. And for me, there's a great book, Be Your Future Self Now by Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. Highly, highly recommend. And on my Built for the Game manifesto. So Fiona, it is so effortless for me to say, here's a declaration or here's something on my personal manifesto, because I've lived so much in the right column of the fear, the judgments, the self-limiting beliefs, the who I am not, that I have all these reminders of myself because they're all so golden to be my future self now. And it's the number one thing I learned in creating a 3-year Vivid Vision. Another great book, if you're looking to create clarity of vision, is Vivid Vision by Cameron Herold. Because when you're putting stuff like, I have a private chef, or I'm flying first class in private planes, and I've got a lake house with a boat and all these things, it can be very easy to slip into scarcity or not enoughness, or how am I going to make these things happen, when the possibility is so big that your identity can't catch up with the vision. Versus, and this was the unlock, even just by going through the process and getting clear on all of this, it's like, no, be your future self now. Be the embodiment of this person. Live this every single day. These are possibilities, not rigid right or wrong things there, that what stands in the way becomes the way, but what is actually the way is the embodiment of I am this person. And once I saw that, it created such a healthier relationship to clarity of vision for me because I always saw the possibility that a bigger vision is just stepping into being that person right now. And then I will create the actions by being that person right now.
Yeah. And without wanting to use the word lesser in a negative way, there's the phrase, what got you here won't get you there. It's like, if you're playing a smaller game, that version of you can't create any more than it's already created. So you have to step into the created version of yourself in order to create the bigger vision or the goal or the whatever it is. So if you want to be a better husband or a better wife or a better father or parent or whatever you want to be, you have to be that in order to be that. Wanting it's not enough. Being here and it being over there is never, you're never going to get there. You got to be over there. And sometimes it really is a quantum leap. There is no path. It's a wormhole in a game that you're just going to through and find yourself at another level. And that's what happened in Phoenix.
To both of us.
Yeah. I went through that kind of like, I'm playing this game to, oh, I'm playing this game now. And the leveling up that happened was at a level of being.
So let's wrap a bow on all of this, Fiona. And to me, quantum leap, huge, massive, new world, new possibilities. And just one thing. So like the magnitude of like, oh my God, how much work do I got to do to create a quantum leap can actually just be, I had a 5-minute conversation with my friend Fiona where she said the word cleansed, and then all of a sudden, domino, 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 3 days later, I'm in a completely different orbit, which what did I create today, or what are my takeaways for anyone watching or listening right here? Number one, embodiment. Anything you want to create in your life, embody it. Because number two, how do you embody it? You speak it out loud. So the way that I have created myself in the last month since the Ultimate Experience Arizona as the leader of a global movement, every single person without fail that I've done a first conversation or a catch-up conversation or a client or anybody in my life, hey, Rob, what's new? I'm the leader of a global movement. Because the abracadabra, I create as I speak. And when you understand the game, the more you speak, the more life and the more energy and the more possibility and the more invitations to all of this. And for many people stepping into a quantum leap, it might feel incongruent, messy, uncertain, or how do I ... Drop all of it and speak it. Because once you speak it, you will embody it, and then you can self-create around it. And to me, this is sort of the formula for creating anything that you want in your life or who you want to be. As Dave says in the comments, we speak creation into being. Amen to that 100%. So that sort of is my bow on all of this, that I have lived every day since you and I first met, right? There's levels to this game, and who I am 3 years ago when we had our conversations versus who I am today in all of this. Look at how both everything is still 100% true from when we spoke and I was challenged to the way that we created these quantum leaps for ourselves inches at a time. And man, I'm so thankful and so blessed for your support, your championship, your friendship, your love. It's legitimately had an impact on my life in creating quantum leaps. What about you, Fiona? What sort of is your bow that you want to wrap on this, or your takeaway, or something you want to share with everyone?
So there's a film called The Peaceful Warrior, and there's a scene in it where Nick Nolte plays a character called Socrates, who's this wise, enlightened being, and there's this young lad who's just struggling with life. And I won't go over the whole movie, but there's a scene where they're walking along by a lake, and this boy's in this complaint and everything, and Nick Nolte just takes him and pushes him in the water. And this lad gets out and he's furious. He's really raging mad. And he's like, "Are you out of your mind?" And then Nick Nolte just says, "Yeah. And it took me a really long time to get there." And it's like, if we can just get out of our minds, the quantum leap is a leap of being. It doesn't happen in our minds. It's not a thinking thing. It sits inside you. It's a being, a state of being that creates the quantum shift. It's not a, "Oh, I think I'll do this," or "I think I'll do that." So, got to get out of your mind.
And you know, it's so beautiful. This is always accessible to every single one of us whenever we want for $0. It's what I love about living in this world and these possibilities, is that all you got to do is say, "I want to play in this world."
Boom.
Open this up.
Boom, as you would say.
Boom.
You are
Boom,
the man who
Shalala.
brought boom into my life.
Good. I love that. So Fiona, thank you so very much for this gift. Where can everybody connect with you? Do you have an ask or an invitation for everybody?
People can connect with me on Facebook. They can connect with me on LinkedIn. They can head over to my website, which is the usual W's with fiona-ross.co.uk or .com, and it will get you there. What was your second question? That's where they can connect with me. And
an invitation. Yeah, it sounds like you got something big coming on.
Hey,
the invitation's a gift, right?
Yeah, absolutely. 21st of March, I have a Q&A on what is being created through the Way of Mastery, and this deep dive to slowing down with the lessons, with the questions, with the really getting the lessons, not just going, "Oh, that's nice, that's a great idea." I'd like to be able to do that, actually practicing the lessons in a container. When you and I did Circle 8 with JP, we had a conversation about the links, each person being a link in the chain. And if one person's not present, there's a gap. So this container is that everyone is an equal link in the chain. This isn't me telling people how to do it. I'm there as one of the links in the chain. But it will be a beautiful space. It already is a beautiful space in the future. So if you want to know more about that, ping me a message, drop me a line, reach out to me. I'll send you the link to register for that Q&A, and everything will be revealed on the 21st of March.
And I highly recommend anybody who listened or watched this and you enjoyed the energy, the language, the possibilities, the feelings, reach out to Fiona, build a relationship with her. Or if you and I have never had a conversation, reach out to me, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, at Rob Cressy. I invite you to enter the portal of possibility. And all it really takes is one DM and one conversation to say, "Hey, let's explore what's possible for you," on how Fiona or myself can be a champion for you on that journey. And I want to show some love to everybody in the comments who had watched this. We hear you. We feel you. We love this community. If there's anything that we can do to be a champion for you, please let us know. Sending tons of love and good vibes and blessings your way. Have a blessed rest of your day.
I love you.
I
Bye.
love you too, Fiona.